Welcome, welcome. Huge day for crowdfunding today. I have David here, and we're gonna look at the ShadowDark RPG. We're gonna look at the Castle Zagyg Kickstarter. If you have any questions about the Sigil VTT, we played that last weekend. So David can give you a firsthand uh, player view of how it went. I can give you a firsthand DM view of how it went. Both of us, it was the first time we ever played it. And anyone in the chat who's played it, I'd love to hear how it went. Hi, Scott. Welcome to the chat. We also have the Chris Cox hyping up AI that we can talk about. Hi, Oren. I think Oren, I think you're right. I think it's going to go over the 1.3 million of the original Kickstarter. It might go to 2 million. I think the ShadowDark, following has grown tremendously, and I bet it could make 2 million. That's another one. That'd be a good poll. In one day, that is. Oh, okay. Yeah, maybe it'll go over 1.3 in one day. Did the original ShadowDark do 1.3 million in one day? I think it was 1.3 million for the whole thing, or 1.4 million for the whole thing, I thought.
Well, a theory of mine has been completely proven wrong. I thought that maybe that original ShadowDark Kickstarter was somewhat buoyed by sort of a backlash against the OGL debacle and people looking for an alternative. And certainly there may have been some of that, but they're just making terrific products. And
I don't think you're wrong, but I think Wizards hasn't recovered from the backlash. They keep doubling down on, you won and so did we, and stuff like that. That rhetoric that just is not the right rhetoric for them to win back their audience. So I bet it's still buoyed a lot by that. And also a lot of people, when they did the OGL thing, started exploring other things. And so everything's kind of buoyed by that.
Yeah, but let's not minimize. ShadowDark is a product that a lot of people are loving.
Yes.
And I've enjoyed playing it, and you've been loving it yourself. So
it's so much fun to run. I just love simple systems. It's like the turns are so fast. And this little discussion we can have a little bit. You did a blog entry. Let me pull that up real quick. If you guys go to, where did I put that one? You did a blog entry on, where did I put it? There it is. Okay. Checks versus attack rolls, things every RPG designer and some veterans should read this. So a good article. You guys could go check that out after the video here today. And one thing a lot of systems, or at least one system, Draw Steel particularly, are saying, it sucks when you miss a roll, but boy, it doesn't suck if your next roll comes up in like 2 minutes, is my opinion anyway.
Yeah, absolutely. It kind of sucks when you miss a roll, but if it's fast and you're getting feedback of hits mixed in with the misses, that's fun. That's what pays for those Las Vegas casinos, that intermittent reinforcement that people get every time they pull the lever. And if you get a little bit of that in the role-playing game where you missed some and you hit some and it comes fast like it does in ShadowDark, and you're not losing 10 minutes before your next turn like maybe some other role-playing games that I've played, that's a good feedback loop, and it's a lot of fun.
Yeah. All right. Well, put your votes in the chat there when you think they're going to go over 1 million tonight for the ShadowDark one. And then we have another cool one. I'm going to share this one. This is Castle Zagyg, where Troll Lord Games has rights to publish, and they have Gary's notes, and they're doing a Kickstarter for the first 3 box sets, and they're going to have 2 more box sets with a second Kickstarter next March. And the first 3 is going to be the Citadel, the Ruins, the Cellars, which will get us 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 dungeon levels, and then 8 dungeon levels from the Castle Zagyg. And then you're going to go down to the very deepest depths next March. And from the time I got my DMG, this was always it was always like hinted at, like this might be published sometime, and it'll be great to finally get it completely out there in public. And
Yeah,
that
I wish they talked a bit more about Gary's notes. This is exciting, but
yeah,
wouldn't it be even more exciting if they took a little bit of a behind the curtain look as part of the product? So you saw some of the origins and the notes that go into it, and then also revealed a modern take on it. I'm thinking of some of those Goodman Games releases where they unpack a classic module and go into detail about its origins and its history, and then expand on it with new stuff. And they've got the expansion here and the new realization. But man, I'd love to see that
yeah.
classic look into the notes mind of Gary Gygax.
I love how Goodman Games, publishes the original, publishes a lot of anecdotes from the original. Hey, Andrew, thanks for joining us. Missing attack or avoiding an attack is not nothing happens. Star Wars is a billion-dollar industry of stormtroopers missing heroes that misses an event. Yeah, I don't feel bad with games that have missed mechanics. I think there's a lot of tactics that go into games regarding your movement, your placement, opening up fire lanes for your allies, closing fire lanes for your enemies, flanking, if the games have flanking. There's so much tactics. It's not, you don't have to hit and do damage every time. I mean, I played Play and Draw Steel, and it's a lot of fun. Cool game. But that whole idea that you must do damage every time, I don't really buy that.
That's a
Uh,
big takeaway from my blog post, that it's kind of okay if an attack misses and nothing happens, but you can stall your game if a check fails and nothing happens. And then you've got rules like the third edition take 20 rule to kind of shortcut past a whole bunch of failed checks to a mathematical inevitability, which is just not particularly fun.
yeah, and I like how ShadowDark and other systems are getting more and more along the lines of don't roll a check if you don't need to roll a check, right? Um, if heroes are skilled at something, they should just be able to do it. Here is our game from the adventure that comes with the Sigil VTT. We got Andrew, he played. Got David here, he played it. I DM'd it. If you have any questions, throw them in the chat. It's very pretty. You can see the graphics are immensely pretty. It's very feature incomplete. I'm dumbfounded at how much it seems like the demo from a year and a half ago. It's like, how many people did they have working on this and what were they doing? I mean, maybe there's a lot more to it that I'm not seeing because the stuff they did do, they did pretty well. I mean, we had a couple bugs, a couple dice get caught, but overall, things that were working pretty well, I thought. There's just a lot of features that are not complete
Yeah.
yet.
And and I had to change my mindset a little bit from, well, it doesn't automate this role and this spell and this attack and this task, and kind of think of it as that's just gravy on top of a pretty setting for us to put down our miniatures.
Yeah.
If you think of it, this is Dwarven Forge with a couple of extra bits of animation thrown in, well, it's not so bad that you can't cast Wall of Force and expect, or what was it? Um, some of those cantrips even weren't animated
Yeah,
or
they didn't have
implemented.
Toll the Dead animated. It's
Toll the
like,
Dead,
really?
exactly.
Yeah. Zaphod says a couple bugs, haha. Yeah. I mean, this is an interesting point. We had a game set up, and one of the players, kind of last minute, was trying to load the game, but couldn't get it done, so didn't get to play. There's a lot of overhead that comes with a game like this. So, very, very interesting to run it. Scott Baker, weren't there reports of over 300 working on it at one point? I don't know how many they had, but I have a bad feeling it's in dire shape. I think if they had a good dedicated team, it could be a really neat product. Just like David said, it's more of a niche product that you're going to do some of the time. I don't know that you'd play it all the time. If you're not going to create maps that look this pretty all the time, unless it's your full time job. And it certainly would be railroady, right? Because you'd only have that one map, so the party would have to go there. Andrew says, I'm so baffled by their priorities. Like, honestly, I just want to know, how is it that some complex conditions, restrain and spells bless, are fully automated, but a core action like dodge isn't? Yeah. Yeah, it's weird. And then don't even get started on kind of a mishmash, it seemed like, of 2014 and 2024 rules. It's like they weren't keeping up with the 2024 development, maybe. And we were getting a lot of thoughts in the 2024 development that they were doing it to match the VTT, but maybe not.
Well, here's the thing. I heard, I've heard rumors flying around, people, conspiracy-minded folks saying, well, gosh, the D&D design direction for tabletop is really oriented towards putting people into a situation where they'll play online. They're guiding D&D in its design to make it more of an online game. And if you play the automated stuff in Sigil, that just completely squashes that notion, because wherever there's sort of an interrupt, somebody gets a boost to block some damage, or they put in a boost to a skill check to get in some inspiration, all that stuff, the automation just completely breaks down.
Yeah.
So you've got to intervene and kind of correct the game state to make it happen. And man, if they were designing a automated version of D&D, some sort of hybrid thing that you had to play on a VTT, wow, they're absolutely going in the wrong direction.
Oren says, I tested for a few hours, not playing, just messing around, saw lots of weird graphic issues, hints at stability issues, even on a high-end PC. Got the impression it had a memory leak. Interesting. It did okay for me. There's no like line of sight implemented or anything like that. There were some interesting things about traps being seen by the party that didn't know if it was built in or not built in. I couldn't tell. Kinetic played with us. I imagine they prioritize animations that look cool. Dodge probably didn't make that list. Actually, no, I don't think I can play with us.
Yeah, there was some
Unless I'm
cool
forgetting the alias.
stuff that was animated, like that elevator. Somebody spent a week working on that.
Right.
And I didn't see the Ankeg erupting from the ground, but apparently you mentioned something that
It did.
happened.
Yeah, let's take a look at
So,
that. Let's take a
wow.
look at that, and then let's come back to the ShadowDark. We'll look at the ShadowDark, and then we'll come back to these questions after ShadowDark. But let's see here. I got all these little things down here. Well, I'll just go to the description. Where in the scout scene, and then Kig burrows out. Okay, let's see how it does here. If you zoom in there.
You're not showing it right now.
Oh, let me share that tab. Okay, and back that up a little bit. There we go. Right over here. Now, it wasn't zoomed in, so it didn't look that cool in the video, but if you happen to be looking where it was zoomed, where it was burrowing out, it would have been pretty cool, I think. Okay, back to ShadowDark. This is cool. They have quite a few like preview stuff in here. Let me catch up in the chat, though. Andrew said, no stability issues for him with a several years old laptop as a player. Like any 3D application, there would need to be optimizations made to ensure it works on a wide variety of systems, I imagine. Yeah, definitely. And how cool would it be? Another thing you found out, David, is like, how do you put a torch on? It's one thing about those adventures, and we noted it while we were playing, they were all very well lit. There was torches burning in every room, even rooms that no creatures were in or should be in. And it'd be cool to bring everything dark and the players bring the light for a ShadowDark experience.
Yeah, so that's one of the things we couldn't figure out. Or thanks, Andrew, for the chorus of every D&D player in a dark room. It would be really cool, to have torches that work. You didn't figure out how to use Fog of War, if that's implemented or not. I don't know.
I could find it in the game I set up on my own, but not in the pre-gen module.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And the Fog of War was weird because if I kind of zoom the screen around different angles, I could see through it. But then if you went to a different angle, you couldn't see through it. So not completely implemented yet.
Yeah.
Okay, so ShadowDark's cruising up to 1 million here. Almost 5,000 backers in the first day of the Western Reaches. Got 3 new zines, 2 new hardcover books, um, a new DM screen, a big player map, character sheets that you can tear out. So when Andrew gets his character killed, he can just tear out a new character sheet and roll it up right away. Spell cards, little mini adventures, a whole bunch of classes. You were noting that, David.
There are so many classes in this game. I'm used to what, 4 in
Yeah,
the core book?
yeah,
And they're talking about 20 something, maybe?
yeah, yeah.
Amazing.
Monk. Everyone's been wanting to see a monk, so that's cool. Sandbox setting. A bunch of locations that have kind of appeared in Kelsey's adventures and her past work. She's indicates that she's kind of been working on the setting since she started writing, and that was all the way back in what I think she said 2017, I think, for 5e or other systems even.
Okay,
And
answer this for me, Tom.
yeah,
You've been getting those cursed scrolls, and I haven't.
yeah,
One of the things that struck me from the description is they kind of seemed reminiscent of the original D&D Brown Book supplements, where you got sort of a grab bag of setting information and classes and other additions to the game. Is that kind of an accurate comparison?
yeah, exactly. Let's take a look at one. So there's some previews. Let me share this tab. You should be seeing Shadow Dark Scene 4, River of Night. And we can just kind of page through the previews here. You got a map of a region. Every hex here is 6 miles. It's odd that the rivers are 6 miles wide or more.
Wow.
That's a design choice.
That's a
Then you have like these special locations. These are the jungles here. And then rotate that back. You have a new class, the Basilisk Warrior class. So Shadow Dark is not too complicated. So all the classes are either going to have D4, D6, or D8 for hit points. Some weapons and some armor they can use. A few special abilities, 2 or 3, and then a talents table. And so every class fits on just this one page. Here's the Ranger class. That was a preview for the original Kickstarter. I really like the Ranger Herbal system. I've been using that in my kind of knockoff game that I'm doing, the D20 game that I'm doing, and it really gives Rangers a lot of character, I think. So I like that for sure. This is a neat, interesting thing I just noticed. Druid spells. So neutral wizards can add these spells to their spell lists. So neutral wizards are druids. And then you have these spells here. If anyone wants to see anything specifically, just let me know. Then you got the key for the maps we were looking at in the front there. And each location is pretty neat. And it's got like, adventure seeds and stuff. Like this first one here, a white-haired gorilla lives with his pet jaguar. His wife went missing a year ago. He'll give a staff of healing to anyone who brings him his wife's gold armband and news of her fate. And this number here is another key location on the hex map.
Oh, that's cool. Nice
Yeah.
to see them threading together the hex crawl with adventure seeds and
Yeah.
things that you can keep stringing along sort of the players so they're directed. It's kind of toxic, I think, for a hex crawl when the players feel sort of directionless. That can play okay for a little while, but after a time, they want to have goals. They want to have missions to accomplish, and that kind of plot hook is good for it.
Aimless wandering monster encounters is not always fun, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, each has a theme, so each one of them works together. Orin, this was an easy day, one back for me. I will always love D&D, but ShadowDark has taken over my table primarily for its support to Dungeon Masters. Yeah, there's a point to be made that 2024 D&D lacks this somewhat. Yeah, I was really disappointed that 2024 D&D seemed to just want to stick it to the DM every chance they got. That's just not the right attitude, is it?
It is not.
Andrew, we had several of the classes, including one of mine, from 3 different cursed scrolls in our Big Shadowdark Moria campaign. Mixed bag, I played the witch. I think the one thing that Andrew notes is a lot of spellcasting seems underpowered. Definitely, it looks to me that way at low levels, right? I wonder how it is if you're playing at 9th and 10th level. I haven't really done that. How high level did you guys get in Moria, Andrew? What's the highest level characters there? Back to the cursed scroll. Okay, so you have all these locations, and there's just, no end. I mean, you could adventure and adventure and adventure with all these hooks here. And then they have these little mini adventures, and I don't know how many will be in each cursed scroll, but each one of these little mini adventures, I think, is good probably for like a one session. One 4-hour session works pretty good for that. Some more random encounters, and then the key for the session for the map. Some things the characters can do, and I don't know. I didn't see if it's tied in. I'm sure it's tied into some location on the hex map as well. And then here's one done by Baron de Rop. Clockwise. Flooded ruins. A dire snapping turtle guards the secrets of explorers who lost their lives uncovering the truth of the ziggurat. I really like these little simple adventures because they're almost like a outline, and it really lets the DM kind of adapt them to his group, I think, or her group pretty well, and make it unique for their campaign. Okay, so that's the preview. Now, of course, the book's longer than that. I think. How long did it say each of these books was? Let's go back and look. So we just looked at 20 pages of the first one, and there's 64 pages each. Let's look at the second one. Second cursed scroll. Dwellers in the Deep. So you're going to go. So the first one was like the jungles, right? So you're right, David. It's kind of a theme, each one. You have the Delver class, the Weirdling class. This one kind of gets into corruption, I think, of the Lost, which are like the 2 lost gods in Shadowdark. You can grow a pseudopod. You gain 2 new corruption talents. So yeah, a list of corruption talents here. Creepy stillness, fish eyes. So they're pretty. Oh, that's a great, like, let me zoom in on that one. That's a great gibbering mouth or art. And then it's got these legs coming out too. That's good.
Yeah, Errol Otis would be proud.
Yeah, that's a really good piece of art there. You got Delver titles, Weirdling titles, sorcerer spells. So chaotic wizards can choose from these extra spells. It's neat little amount of like nuance to the classes. Let's look at a spell here. Mischief. Duration 5 rounds. Range near. You beguile 1 humanoid level 2 or less with a near range. Targets overcome with a compulsion to commit harmful mischief for the spell's duration. Each round it tries to commit a sneaky, cruel act that would hinder or inconvenience its nearest ally. The spell ends if you or your allies do anything to hurt the target that it notices. That's cool. And then there's an adventure, the Ghoulish Library of Lang. And that's the end of that one. That's 11 pages out of that 64-page book. Then we have Curse Scroll number 6. This is the City of Masks, so it's going to be like a big city setting, I think. You got your Bard class in here. Oren says, oh, here we go, Andrew. I think someone got to 9. I got to 7. The power does significantly scale for casters. Doesn't make up for the fact that a caster can fail and lose a spell, while non-casters have no comparative penalty. Yeah, if I were to house rule anything in ShadowDark, it might be to make spells roll to retain instead of roll to cast. Like you will cast it, but you just might not be able to cast it again. At least you have that way. At least you know you're going to go do something, as opposed to, hey, I'm going to come heal you. Oh no, I'm not. Sorry. That'd be the one house rule I might consider. Or in white, spells don't seem to really get powerful until tier 4. That seems pretty unilateral across all expanded materials, so I suspect it's purposeful design decision. I think you're right, Oren. I think the way Kelsey puts it, magic can be very powerful, but it's also very dangerous at low levels and very weak. Like, a first level wizard has no good damage dealing spells. I like the idea of some supposed to be in chaos law, neutral only, definitely. Andrew, why not make it so that when a non-caster misses attack, their weapon breaks? Right? That would be certainly painful. Okay, the Bard class. Kind of a magic dabbler. The Duelist class. Its only weapons are daggers and swords. Leather armor, mithril chain, D8, same as a fighter. Parry once per day and attack your choice that would hit you misses instead. Renown. Characters' renown can grow, so that's a new mechanic, I think. PCs may choose to add their renown to their reaction rules in place of their charisma when in a location where they're likely to be recognized.
Yeah,
that's good.
Interesting idea.
Here's lawful wizards. They are mages, and so they have spells like Flare, Reveal, Ward. Let's look at a tier 3 spell. Banish. The Bane of D&D, Banish spell. Tier 3. Let's see if it's in there. There it is. Banish. Duration, instant, range near. With a word of power, you send one extra player creature of level 6 or less who hears you back to its dimension of origin. Now, here's the problem with making spells roll to retain is that ShadowDark's pretty much balanced on there's no saves for most spells. So it's up to the wizard making the spell check to cast it to have some chance of a failure. Whereas in like D&D, there's a save, so it'd be like a failure too. Hey, I cast it, yeah, but it did nothing, right? So this puts all that onus on the character casting the spell.
As long as you keep riding those successful spell casting, you're just making the whole dungeon go away.
Right.
Assuming.
Right, you can just banish everything, right?
Assuming it's all extra planar. That's a significant limitation
that is, yeah.
Used to exist in original D&D and went away with recent editions.
Right.
At least our most recent.
Downtime. So a whole bunch of new downtime things, spiritualism, skullduggery. This is good because, right now in the original book, I think there's just carousing and like training where you can like add a skill. Martial training where you can maybe add some more weapons that you can wield. And depending on your hit dice, D4 or D6 or D8, you get different things. Magical research. You can get some potions made. That's cool. Find some scrolls, create a wand. So that's nice. That downtime activity stuff kind of really expands on downtime activity. And then city overview. Look at that in a second here. A 7th level rogue makes character instantly disappear with their sneak attack. Why not level 7 wizard with banish? Right. Yeah, level 7 rogue's pretty good with the sneak attack. That's for sure. That is for sure. Okay, city overview. So you can travel through the city. Random encounter checks. It's basically broken into districts. In the Montmartre Castle, the Duke's stronghold stands on the hill overlooking the city. Fine restaurants and bathhouses cluster outside its walls. Got some holidays in here where carousing is changed. That's cool. And that's 16 pages of zine number 6, it looks like. Now, I think it says there's a little bit of overlap, and there's actually a chart. If we look in the Kickstarter, are we at 2 million yet, by the way? Let's see. It's 29 after. I should have been at 1 million if I was right. Oh, no, I was short. Okay.
It's going to take them a little time. They have a surge in the beginning, and
they're flattening out a little bit, but they're still
it's
going.
going to flatten out.
Yeah. Okay.
But they're
They'll get
nearing
there
it
here soon.
Yeah.
Overlap. Where's the overlap? There is a chart here somewhere. There we go. Nuance breakdown of the crossover. Like a new tab. Here we go. So the Cursed Scroll zines only have all this stuff. The books have all this stuff, and there's some overlap between the two. And it looks like a lot of these things that are in the zines only are kind of maybe like optional rules. Mostly, it looks like.
Yeah, we're
So
not seeing the Venn diagrams.
Sorry about that.
There we go.
Yeah, so it looks like in the Cursed Scrolls only is a bunch of optional rules mostly. And then some of the optional rules that are maybe more prevalent, like boats and mounts, make it over here. And then in the books, you get a starter adventure, a big unified hex map, 3 new classes, 2 new ancestries. And we'll take a look at the first book here. So, Game Master book. Show this tab. The various city states, merging some rules from the different books, carousing limits based on the city you're in, mount rules, luck rules, talks about sandboxes, seeding rumors, the West Marches style of game with like either DMs creating their availability time slots, then players filling them, and players organizing it. If you go back and look at the first edition player's handbook, kind of like how to adventure in the back of that book. Of course, Gary was kind of like he had a plethora of players, right? So he kind of let them organize the game. So that'd be this sort of scheduling, or other GMs can just run a session, and everyone's invited up to a limit.
Yeah, this is good that they just explain how to run a sandbox and a West Marches style campaign with open tables and that sort of flexibility, drop in for a session. And that's a great style of play. And it's nice that they're explaining it.
It's kind of what, Adventures League is in one sense, where it's episodic. You jump into an adventure, and then you can jump into another adventure, and you got to finish that adventure basically in that session. They talk about to keep things tidy, PCs should always return to safety at the end of their session. And they even have a table. They say, look at the back to town table if they get stuck. So if time runs out, in the middle of Castle Greyhawk, for example, looks like you roll a d6, and if you roll a 1, you're dead. If you roll a 6, you return to town safely. No worse for wear.
That's a little bit of a nudge there for sure.
Make sure you get back on time.
Yeah.
That's cool. Okay, so there's West Marches rules and such. Hex crawling rules. Terrain. So each of those hex crawls are 6 squares, and you can travel 24 miles a day. That's quite a walk. I think Bob the World Builder did a video on walking 24 miles in a day. You don't want to do that many days in a row, I don't think, if you're not in really good shape. Mounted, sailing, and then if you're crossing like jungle terrain, you'd go, instead of 4 hexes a day, you'd go 2 a day. And what the different terrain types are. Climate, what extreme temperatures do. Different regions in the Western Reaches. What we got here? We got the tall Yule jungle, river, jungle, mountain, volcano, lava, path, coast. Got the Mire Swamp, which is swamp. Got the Isles of Andric, which is Arctic Sea, coast, mountain, forest, river. And then you have descriptions of the different areas. The Isles of Andric, frozen isles where the last sea crashes through sweeping fjords beneath the mighty Drake Peaks. Eternal night settles over these lands in the winter. Drake Peak's vicious drakes rule these eternally snowy spires, while the Fey-like Verg toil at their work deep within them. And I imagine each of these will have various crawls, and here's some crawl points. So I wonder how many pages of that there is. We jump from page 49 here in the description of the areas to page 90 in some of the descriptions of the exact locations. And then they have some training opportunities. Uncle Grigori is a masterful witch who will impart eldritch secrets to apprentices who impress him. Uh, He's six-pronged leeches within 1 hour's time. Each time you hit one, you take d4 damage. If you complete one of the tasks, he teaches you a witch secret.
Hmm. Ah,
Gain +1 bonus to witch spellcasting checks. That's pretty fun. Oh, we got some more people on. Whole bunch more people. Ray. Hey, welcome, Ray. It seems people like ShadowDark because of the lethality of it, but I just wonder how come DMs just don't homebrew to make D&D harder. So I can answer that pretty well, Ray. I do homebrew to make D&D harder. Dave can vouch for that. I really ramp up the damage that monsters put out up to like 1.5 times, 1.7 times as much damage. I weigh up the number of CR creatures the party faces at one time, and they can take a lot. The as published adventures are just cakewalks. If I threw the as published adventures at them, they'd be like, "Oh well, thanks for story hour. I guess we never had to really worry about anything, right? It was never on the edge of dying." But the thing is, it takes a ton of effort to, go through an encounter like that, a big encounter like that with high level characters takes a long time, and everyone's turn comes by slowly, therefore. And I just love the rapid pace of a turn that is just action, move, and action's just one attack. Now, maybe fighters get better and better at that one attack, and maybe they can cleave and do two on lower level opponents. Um, I think it's just more fun for me to see that kind of rapid pace as a DM. I enjoy D&D still. I mean, there's um, so much more there with D&D right now compared to ShadowDark, right? There's so much more history with it, and classes and magic items, and it's a lot there that I like. So that's my explanation. Um, I do homebrew D&D to make it harder. I like ShadowDark not because of the lethality, but really because of the pace.
Tom, you've run a bunch of Shadow Dark adventures for
Hmm.
us. How do you feel about the amount of content that the group goes through as compared to a D&D adventure in the same time?
Right, that's the other thing. That's huge, David. Um, combat's rapid pace and doesn't take that long. And I joke about games like Fourth Edition and high level Dungeons and Dragons, and Draw Steel is probably going to be this way too. It's a lot of math to find out you're okay. Whereas Shadow Dark is very little math, and you're probably going to die. So there's just so much more intensity to it, I think. But you get a lot more exploration done too in a game like Shadow Dark because combats go so fast. Has that been your experience as a player, David?
Oh, to some extent, yeah. I think
Hmm.
we do get more done.
Hmm.
It feels a little different, but you run through material really quickly, even on the D&D side with the
Yeah.
tabletop automation. So it's not as dramatic as I would expect with something I might play at a convention, for example.
Yeah. One thing I noticed was so we did Vecna chapter 5, which is supposed to be set in the Death House, but I moved it to Castle Ravenloft. And the characters are 14th level in that chapter. And I had run Strahd Must Die at like 6th level earlier in the year. And the amount of exploration the party, like how much of Castle Ravenloft they got to see, was much reduced for the high level group compared to the low level group because combat just took too long. And I think we run pretty fast combat. I can't
Yeah.
imagine a group that was slow at combat.
On the other hand, you run 2 times deadly numbers of
That's true.
creatures.
That's true. So
So
a slow group might not be slow because they never have any challenge. It's just, hey, roll initiative. Hey, these guys tickle you a little bit. And now the encounter's over. Um, Tiger Upcut, welcome. Thanks, guys, for making my long train ride interesting. Where are you heading, Tiger? Where do you live? Um, I hear people complain that D&D is easy, so why not? I don't know. Yeah, D&D is easy as written for some of the published adventures. You just got to ramp it up. I mean, no reason why you can't make it difficult. There's nothing inherent in D&D that the players have, like just inherently they're going to survive everything. Not if they take enough damage. I think your premise is a bit faulty. There are a number of reasons I like ShadowDark beyond the value. Yeah, Eric, I agree with you. I think we talked about them. It's the speed of play. It's the added exploration you get to. Or in white, we have been homebrewing D&D for decades to make it the game we want it to be. It is refreshing to be able to limit that with ShadowDark and just get our world to the table and play. It's refreshing to get a character done in like 5 minutes, right? And start playing it. That's the other thing. It's like it's lethal, but you haven't invested researching 100 feats to make your character, you know, just right. So you don't feel so bad when they die. Andrew, D&D at its heart is a heroic fantasy game where the heroes win. It could be, doesn't have to be. While there are grimmer settings and harsher DMs, the core of the game is built around long-term characters and attachment to them. It's getting more and more like that, right? I mean, definitely that's how they write the big books. You know, I'll be on the Witchlight. Characters should never die. Or any of their hardcover books, characters should never die. They expect them to go through this whole gigantic campaign of 12 levels, and it's the same characters at the end. Whereas original D&D was you're going into the Castle Greyhawk, and you might live through it, you might not. Hey, Dave, thanks for joining us. Hey, Matt, thanks for joining us. Do you notice a difference in the amount of prep you have to do for individual sessions, like between ShadowDark and D&D? I kind of over prep everything, and it's about the same, I think, roughly, maybe. The monsters are definitely quicker to prep in ShadowDark. I like the monsters in ShadowDark having like one key feature versus the monsters in D&D kind of being overcomplicated that you might not get to all of the stuff that they've defined for them. And so if you over prep like I do, you're prepping a lot of stuff that might never see the table, whereas in ShadowDark it will see use usually. Tiger Uppercut, train from New York to Central New Jersey. New York City, cool. David Dyer. Dark Vision makes everything too easy. Absolutely. I don't use Dark Vision in D&D anymore either. So I love that. I think it's huge for immersion and the sense of danger, for darkness to be encroaching on you. And that just is gone in D&D, right? Everything's got Dark Vision. All right, David Dyer's on point. There are way too many things in D&D that allow players to hard hand wave obstacles and dangers. Yeah, absolutely. Okay, let's look at I think they did one more thing in this book. Let me take a look here. That's Uncle Gregor. Okay, here's some areas being described. Oh, so in 90, they have these things. On page 106, they have these things. So there must be little extra inserts. There might even be a little one-page adventure inserted into some of these sections. This is Lowland Moor they're talking about. This one doesn't have a heading, so not sure where it might be. Here's Windry Hogsfoot. Survive 3 days and nights in the swamp without anything but your clothes and a stick. And your benefit of roll one, your movement is not slowed by boggy terrain. These are fun. I like these guys.
Yeah, that's a ingenious idea, and I don't think I've ever seen anything that quite works that way.
Yeah, because you got these things that are basically adventure hooks. The tasks, now not all, eating 3 leeches wasn't much of an adventure hook, or 6 leeches. But bring Uncle Gregor a robe of the finest Alcasian silk. It must be red, not crimson, red, and blue. So that could be a whole adventure there. Okay, so that is the DM's book, or the Game Master's book. So now let's look at the player's book. And let's go back and see if they're over 1 million yet. See who wins the poll. Oh, God. 991,000.
It's close. Wow.
It's really close. 992,000. Oh, almost. Okay. Back to the player's book. All right, so let's take a look at what they shared here. 10 things which may not even be true everyone knows about the Western Reaches. The world ends at the last sea. There's nothing else west of the coast, just the last sea rolling on and on into the mist. Some say if you keep going, you'll eventually arrive on the shores of the gods' realm. You can ask them for one thing, but you'd never make it back from there anyhow. This is cool. And you know what? With the Western Reaches, if this book does really good, Kelsey could do the Northern Reaches, the Southern Reaches, the Eastern Reaches. Could keep going with stuff like this.
There's a reason it's called the Western Reaches, though,
Yeah,
because it's a nod to that style of West
the
Marches
Western
play.
West Marches. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's an interesting question for Kelsey. Is she like, "Hey, I love ShadowDark. I'm going to keep doing it," or am I like, I'm kind of at the end. I'm going to go on to something else next. It'd be interesting to see. Um,
With this kind
Ancestries,
of success, it would be hard to turn away from this.
yeah.
Wow.
Okay, we got a half elf. I think that's new. Half orcs already existed, but half elves I think are new. Kobolds are new for sure as player races. Here's the half elf. So it's got one thing. It's adaptable. You roll your talent rolls twice and choose which one to use. That's pretty nice.
Seems good.
Yeah, that's pretty good. Half elf trinkets. Kaisian archer. These look like Scythian archers or Mongol archers or something like that from our world.
Horse archers, yeah.
Yeah, dagger, longbow, shortbow, sling scimitar, leather armor, d6 hit dice, three
It's
times.
all great until they want to bring their horse into the dungeon.
Yep. 3 times per day, 1+half your level round down to your next range attack and damage roll. You can hold up to 80 arrows while only occupying one gear slot. Normally it's 20 arrows per gear slot, I think. You have a warhorse with a lovely demeanor. It comes when you call. And you can get additional uses of a Hawkeye. So, there's like no end to how many classes you could come up with. And it's just such a simple little system to just make little variations on the talent table, little variations on the special abilities.
I think the challenging thing with classes as they go more and more numerous is to find things that are evocative and really call and don't feel like they're trying too hard to come up with some sort of concept. There's a lot of subclasses in contemporary D&D that seem like, where did that come from? They're just pulling something from a hat or something.
Yeah. Yeah. Like I'm waiting to see like Frog Wrangler or classes like that. It's really
Yeah.
getting to the bottom of the barrel.
Right.
Hey, Robert, thanks for joining us. How often in your Shadow games do characters explore dark places without torches? Never, really, hardly ever. Have that happen to you, Andrew? We dodged a bullet when we decided to set our upcoming project not in the West. I will say I really enjoy your Shadow Dark playthroughs. Thanks, Ray. It would be awesome if Sigil finally handles Fog of War and lighting to be able to run some Shadow Dark modules. Yeah, that'd be really cool. And some people had questions about, is it going to be open? And I don't know the answer to that, but in their video that they did to announce it or kind of update on it from about 6 months ago, they claimed it would be. And of course, the way it's set up, you can manually roll dice. So you could, as it is today, you could pretty much play any system with it. It just won't be automated at all. Andrew says, so if characters never explore without torches, how's that different from just everyone having dark vision?
It's the timer. It's the torches establish a time.
Yeah. And the range of sight too. And
Creates
that you
an
have to drop your
urgency.
torch if you want to wield a weapon with 2 hands, and there's no end to dangers there. Because torches go out. Yeah, Mark. Exactly, Mark. How you doing, Mark? I didn't see it Winter Fantasy because I was holed up in the room sick the whole time, I'm afraid. Okay. Here we go. We're on page 9 and 19 of the preview. The Roustabout class. I've heard about this class. This is like an average laggard of no particular talent. They wield weapons and magic with the elegance of a hog-tied kobold. But if their back is against a wall, a glint of bravery may, on rare occasions, rise to the surface. They know clubs and daggers and hammers, which are the same as a club and a staff, and the other armor, and D4 hit points, and no base spells. Know a guy. You have advantage on checks related to interacting with commoners and sourcing favors. Lucksmith, whenever another player uses your luck token, they have advantage on the new roll. Surprising guts when you are reduced to half your hit points, which that might be a narrow window with the D4 hit die. Between half your hit points and dead might be a small window. You have advantage on your next roll.
Okay, a minute ago I was talking about running out of character concepts that are compelling.
Yeah.
I
I like
never
this.
mind.
This is funny. +1 to any stat and roll another talent. Gain the ability to wield a new weapon or armor. +1 to any 2 stats. Roll an extra hit points die this level. Learn any spell of a tier equal to half your level rounded down. Cast it using that class's spellcasting stat. I mean, that's super rare though, right? A
Yeah.
12 on 2d6, that's 1 in 36 chance of happening. And you only get like 5 of these rolls in your whole career, so that's not going to happen too often. Um, that's funny though. And it is basically no particular talent. That's when players who are super optimizing type players, and I can think of a few, will roll their eyes and in disgust at you for bringing this class to the adventure. Although optimization is not a thing in ShadowDark, everything is random pretty much, so not a lot of optimizing going on. Let me catch up here.
Nope.
David, resource management becomes a thing. Yeah, for torches, absolutely. Ray, if it's open source, then people will fix up Sigil in no time. Yeah, so if Sigil, I can't believe how little seems to have changed from the previews. It feels like no one's working on it, which really has me scared. It's like, if this is what's happened to after a year, what will happen in another year? Will it be a little tiny bit better, or is no one working on it? Mark, oh no, I saw David from across the room, but didn't get to interact. Yeah. Andrew, I jokingly said that ShadowDark's core fantasy is be terrible at everything and then die, but now that I see the rest of it, I'm not sure I was joking. that is kind of its core. It doesn't have to be exactly where was I? Okay. Warlock class. Huh. Either Celestial, Diabolic, Draconic, Primordial, Sylvan, D6 per level. You kind of got some fighting capability. You have a patron. Choose a patron to serve. Your patron is the source of your supernatural gifts. Patron boon. At first level, you get a random patron boon, which I don't know if we will see them. Nope. Nothing in the preview. So I guess what those are. Whenever you get a new talent roll, you may choose to roll on your patron boon table rather than the talent. Okay. Patron boon from any patron. +1 stats, etc., etc. So interesting. Be interesting to see what those patron boons are like for the warlock class.
Right. I don't see any spells that are
Right.
on that description there.
So you're going to be kind of a fighter, and whatever those patrons do, whatever those boons do. The Lost. So the Lost are the Cata gods. They were once 2 of the 9, but the other gods cast them down for unspeakable crimes. So I think these are like organizations or factions. Yeah, these are kind of like factions. So, see, if you remember the Bards faction, you have some bylaws. Do not allow evil to stand uncontested. You have maybe some boons. Members in good standing learn a mix of rumors about evil plots, magic items, and people who need help. It's interesting those are bolded as if that might be some tables that are in the book, like random rumor tables. Jeweled Eye, the Torchbearers. There you go. Compensate torchbearers who help you share the spoils. Members in good standing learn a blend of rumors about adventuring sites and treasures. Yeah, I bet these are like tables of rumors. You get additional benefits, probably no matter which group you're in. 5th to 6th level. Once per level, maximize your death timer roll. And that is the end of the previews. Okay, so that's the previews. I bet we're at 1 million now. Let's see. Refresh the screen. 996,000. It's almost there. Oh, 997,000. Okay, now let's look at, any questions or anything specific you want to look back and see there? Or in less than 4K to go to 1 million. There's a Sigil Discord, and I saw at least one developer there very actively interacting with folks. Yeah, there's definitely some. I would love to know how many in total. The Warlock in Curse Scroll 1 is not a spellcaster. Okay.
Interesting.
And this one wasn't either. So I bet I could go back and look at Curse Scroll 1, which I bet I have here. Let's see what the patron boons look like. So if I go back, Chris, scroll one. There. Share that. So here's what an old Chris scroll looks like. I don't want to show every single page since it's not a preview. Patron boons, here we go. All right, so you got these various deities or otherworldly creatures, and you roll in the patron boon table. Here's one. An average one, you're going to get a boon to some score. Learn to wield one melee weapon. Gain advantage on melee attacks for 3 rounds. Force the GM to reroll a single roll. So interesting.
I don't know why you need a patron for this stuff.
But. Right. It'd be interesting to see how that would work. Mugdalblub. You guys played in the Mugdalblub adventure. He's like a ooze god. Once per day, turn into a crawling puddle for slime for 3 rounds. Maximize 2 hit point die rolls prior or future. Wow, 2 of them. You have a lot of hit points. Become immune to 1 acid, cold, poison. Reroll of no options. Wow, always immune to acid or cold or poison. So interesting. Hostile spells that target you are always hard to cast. Once per day, force a close being to check morale, even if immune. The Willow Man. Interesting. Okay, so that is the Kickstarter for ShadowDark. Any ShadowDark questions? Warlocks really need DM buy-in. Patrons play a big role in my game. Yeah, sounds like it would.
That's definitely a missed opportunity in D&D where warlocks do not have a lot of interaction with their patrons. And I can see why they would want to go that direction because it's writing a check that the DM has to cash.
Right, yeah.
But wow, there's a lot of opportunity there for
shooting the vial,
enriching the campaign.
Yeah, shooting the vial, you can learn a wizard spell. But that's very few spells, right? Because you're only doing this at 1st level, and then 3rd, 5th, 7th, and 9th. So 5 times in your career. And only some of the time do you get a spell. Plus 1 XP whenever you learn a valuable or significant secret. You guys probably, yeah, you already seen that. Okay, so now let's look at how, one more look at their Kickstarter. 999,000. Wow. They're about
stunning
3 more suppliers. Yeah, let's just stay here until we get to 1 million. Maybe everyone was holding on to try and be the 1,000,000th person or the $1 million person.
Do you get balloons or something?
Yeah, maybe you get balloons. Yeah. 999.6. Man, that is amazing. Ray, so you're a spellcaster or marshal depending on your pact. Yeah, sounds that way. $400 to go. Any second now. I bet next update it goes over 1 million. It's actually going to hit 1 million in just under 12 hours. Here we go. 99.7. Did that go down? Someone must have canceled their order.
Cancel.
1 million.
There
we
go.
go. Wow. The time was 7:58 p.m. Eastern Time. Happy New ShadowDark year. Yep. I love the success that they've gotten with ShadowDark, that's for sure. 1 million. Really such a visionary or focused vision on the game, right? Just really went for keeping on theme. Okay, let's look at Castle Zagyg. Let's see where they're at. $213,000 on that one. Mark says less than 12 hours. Yep, less than 12 hours. So who on the chat has backed ShadowDark? If you back ShadowDark, type an S in. If you backed Castle Zagyg, type a Z in. Or if you plan to, type an S or a Z in if you have or plan to shortly back either one of those two. I think really, I feel like they're doing pretty good with 213,000. Castle Zagyg seems like it's kind of a narrower group of people it'd focus to, right? It's certainly a system that's probably not quite as popular as ShadowDark, and it's only DM material, no player material there. So Orin's back ShadowDark, Mark back ShadowDark.
The price point on this Castle Zagyg is pretty high. All of them.
Yeah,
ShadowDark is
I
much
pledged
more
I
affordable
pledged
for.
229 on ShadowDark, so it was pretty high.
Okay.
That's a high one. And then Castle Zagyg was that one. Does it say what I put on that one? It was around 219, I thought. 230,
Okay.
230 for that one. So for 230, you get each of the 3 box sets in box set form and PDF form. What's in this? So you got 3 box sets in the first campaign. Next campaign coming will be 2 more. You have the Citadel, the Ruins, and the Cellars. Some
Take a
pretty
look at
nice
those
looking.
maps. Those are just damn gorgeous.
Yeah, those are some beautiful maps, aren't they? Here's some blown up copies of them. That's really cool. Who did that? Let's see. I think it says here. Maps by Svetlana K. So check out Svetlana K's stuff because that looks pretty nice. We got Decron on A. What's A? Robert on S and Andrew on SD ShadowDark. So a bunch of ShadowDark people here. Maybe no Zagyg people here. Type a Z if you did Zagyg. I might be all alone. Yeah, beautiful maps there. And then you have the upper works of the Castle Zagyg. Have that kind of in bigger format here. And I think that's what I have in the box over my shoulder there, if I recall correctly. So they had access while Gary was still alive to start working on Castle Zagyg. And I think when Gary passed, there was a lot of, turmoil with who owned the rights to stuff. And they just got the rights back, I think is what happened. I don't know exactly all the details of how that went down, but so I'm excited to see them getting back to it now that they have access to this again. All right, so that is, what else here? Let's see what kind of extra stuff they got in the Kickstarter. Customized in sheets, ribbons, Mad Mage portrait. I think Kelsey did a really good job and always seems to on making sure there's a lot in the Kickstarter that was kind of juicy that people wanted to be there for. Let's see what her extra stuff is. Look at this river. It's a gigantic river. I want to know why the rivers are so wide.
6 miles wide.
This is a wide river. Kelsey, put in the comments why you made the rivers so wide. I want to know. Mini adventures that you can get. Where is the stretch goals? Share this tab. Sharing the wrong tab. Stretch goals. Okay. You get a sticker on day 1. 200,000, 2 more mini adventures, 300,000 sheet of luck tokens. Wow. She did not anticipate getting to 1 million in day 1, it doesn't look like.
They better get busy.
They didn't get busy on their stretch goals. They didn't need any stretch goals to incentivize going over 300,000. Holy cow.
They just got to be falling out of their chairs at the surge from this.
Yeah, that's great. That is great. Good, great to see. Great to see the success. So Bob the World Builder did a video. I don't know if you watched it, David, where he talked about the Kickstarters and he went through the distribution and how they've been ramping up lately and how there's a huge shift over the last couple of years from 5e having like equal amount of Kickstarters to just dying compared to all the non-5e Kickstarters.
Fascinating.
Yeah. So it's Castle Zagyg, modules for D&D or its own game. Sorry for the noob question. It's somewhat new to D&D and TTRPGs. It's Castles and Crusades, which is, I've heard tell, I've never played it yet, but I've heard tell it's like second edition combined with the best parts of first and second edition D&D. I have their Castle Keeper's Guide, and it's beautiful. Well, just a beautiful book. We go to their site. They have some like add-ons, I think. They don't show it here, but their artwork too on their stuff. They have just great artwork. Here's their their dragon here. I mean, that's a proper dragon, right? And that's a proper knight. Now I've seen, and this I can't tell. I don't think there's any AI art here in this image. I've seen them toying with it some, so I don't know if they're a non-AI company. I don't think Wizards is going to be a non-AI company for much longer, given the stuff that Chris Cox is saying. So, but I love that art. That's great art, and their book covers. Let me find a picture of their book covers because they are great. Let's see here. Castles, Crusades.
To some extent, I think Chris Cox is talking about AI quite a lot because that's what stockholders expect.
Yeah,
and investors expect.
Sadly, stockholders aren't necessarily your best friends. They're not D&D players. Very many of them, I don't think.
If they could find a way to use AI to automate folks playing D&D in some fashion, I'm sure they would be absolutely thrilled.
So here's the Castles and Crusades Castle Keeper's Guide, and the art book is kind of an homage back to the original DMG. They tidied it up a little bit. They don't have the scantily clad female in the arm of the Yetton as in the original D&D, but really a throwback, and I really like their work. And we go back to their other products. Their cover of their Player's Handbook is a throwback to the first edition Player's Handbook. And then their Monster Manual is a real throwback to the first Monster Manual. There it is. There's their Monsters and Treasures book. Got a Tarrasque back there, but the Red Dragon, the Centaur, the Unicorn, the Troll, and the Owlbear, and the Roper were like all the creatures on the first edition Monster Manual. Really great art, and if this is the same artist, it looks like they're only honing their skill. This was maybe their original work, and getting better and better at it.
Definitely. Looks like work of the same person, but perhaps with a little bit more polish.
Yeah, it does.
Contemporary pictures.
Mark says, it's the second edition that Gary was working on before he parted ways from TSR, from what I understand. Do you know if they had his manuscripts or something? That'd be interesting if that's what it was. If they had any insight to what he was working on, because they were partnered with him a little bit, right, before this started. So they could have got insight. I remember reading the old Dragon magazines and reading the Sorcerer's Scroll or whatever it was that Gary wrote, talking about second edition and the new classes he was going to be adding to it and stuff.
Yeah, I think the aim of the Castles and Crusades was to use OGL to invent a system that was compatible, loosely compatible with the original editions of the game, and introduce a few modern enhancements to it, like ascending armor class and whatnot. There's skill checks that I think are roll under on a D20, something like that.
I think you're right. Yeah. That's one thing I love about ShadowDark. It uses the 5e system, makes no apology for it, but strips away. Mike Merles earlier today said it's 5e minus all the bullshit, which I think is a pretty good description of it. It's like if 5e had a basic system, that's kind of what the rules would be, I think. That's what happens when companies go public. They focus on making the shareholder happy instead of the customer. Yeah, I forget someone. I was commenting on how the starter set looked more childish a little bit to my taste, And then someone put out an article that I think it was Chris Cox was talking about how they want to get D&D to everyone, from kids to grown-ups to everyone. And the D&D I came from was, the people who read Conan books, which is definitely not everyone. You know, i- it was a kind of a more narrow audience. So I have to admit, if they want to get everyone, they're trying to do that, and it's different than trying to get just a Conan reading audience.
Right. Their goal is not to find a more narrow audience, Tom.
Right. And despite what they're doing with using Keep on the Borderlands, it's very interesting how they're doing it to make it a starter set that you can sit down and play immediately. Right? You could have a group of friends come over for dinner, and you could bring this out, and you can hand them the card for each of their characters, and say, "Okay, here's some cards with ancestries on it. Here's some cards with backgrounds on it. Just pick one of each, throw it on your character card, and then here's some equipment cards. Pick a weapon, pick an armor, throw it on your character card, and you're good to play."
Yeah.
And now we're playing D&D, and I'm DMing this time, and the next game we go into will rotate, and you can DM.
Yep.
Uh,
And
so
feels a
they're
little bit like a board game experience, kind
yeah,
of bridging the gap.
yeah. So like two birds, with one stone too. They're getting new people to play, and they're getting new people to DM. So I gotta hand it to them. That's a good strategy.
Most
Using
definitely.
AI to randomly generate the dungeons for different DMs running different sessions for like D&D maybe. Um, in Sigil, okay, in Sigil, it seems like Sigil could use AI to generate a whole bunch of random dungeons, but I would love to see Sigil open sourced and let people create just the beautiful dungeons. There's a guy, Beneos, who does beautiful stuff. He's worked on Curse of Strahd. He's working on Baldur's Gate now, and his maps are amazing. And if those could be ported into Sigil, that'd be impressive.
Right. I think that would be the dream for
Yeah.
Sigil, from my perspective, is to
Oh, you said it right, David. I've been saying it wrong this whole time.
turn it into something where folks can put their supercharged battle maps on there as adventures and resources that people can purchase like they might on the DM's Guild.
Hmm.
And then if a lot of people are contributing wonderful content for that, then you've really got something going. Because if it's just me or you creating those sorts of maps in the Sigil system, it's not going to deliver enough of an enhanced experience to make it worth that extra friction of having to play in that environment. So I'm just on a map and seeing squares and miniatures, that
Yeah.
kind of thing.
Yeah. If they could set up a DM skill type system where creators could create fantastic stuff and get paid for it, and they take their cut, it could be pretty good. And they could really focus on getting the engine working flawlessly. It'd be pretty good. Mark is saying mostly hearsay for the second edition that Gary would have done. But I have the Castle Keepers book. I need to get the player's book. I have it in PDF actually, so I don't actually need to get it, but I need to take another look at that and see how much it compares to first and second edition. All right. So let's take a quick look at Hasbro wants to AIFI your game. Chris Cox. This is an article by Christian Hoffer on Ian World. So give Christian a look and a follow and all that good stuff. He writes a lot of really good articles. Chris Cox, the CEO of Hasbro, is talking about using AI in Dungeons and Dragons again. He says the potential usage of AI and D&D other Hasbro brands, describes himself as an AI bull, offered up a potential subscription service that uses AI to enrich D&D campaigns as a way to integrate AI. Yeah, I'm sure Hasbro will eventually go this way. Now, it's hard. Where's that line, right? If you take Photoshop and use the tools of Photoshop to automatically find the edge of a person to cut it out, I mean, it's kind of like AI, and it's just how much further from there do you go? So it's a nebulous line to cross. I know where I work, it's all the buzz too. The D&D design team and others involved with D&D at Wizards of the Coast have repeatedly stood by a statement posted back in 2023 that said D&D was made by humans for humans. So I definitely prefer made by humans for humans in stuff I buy right now. And I don't think I'd want just random adventures in Sigil anyway. I'd want, the custom made. Give me Pharaoh, give me Chris of Strahd, give me the giant adventures, give me cool stuff thought up by humans for sure. But with Chris Cox going full ahead on proselytizing it, I imagine we're going to start seeing more and more of it at some point.
Yeah, but he still hasn't figured out how to make that happen in a way
It
that's
still has not happened.
going to make any money. So until he's got a plan there, I'm not seeing it.
And he did another interview that was really tone deaf on the OGL stuff. Really tone deaf. I mean, it really feels like he was the impetus behind that and didn't really take any of the blame for it, and still thinks it wasn't necessarily a bad thing. And so I'm afraid Hasbro and Wizards isn't learning. They're going to keep bleeding market share. And at some point, when a big company like that's bleeding market share and bleeding profit, they're just going to say, well, we don't need to do that anymore. We'll keep D&D around for the brand, and we won't work on the product anymore. So that day may come.
Okay, well, lucky for us, we've got a bunch of it in the Creative Commons. And
yeah, lucky for us, we can play it forever, right?
Exactly.
It doesn't matter if it goes away. And we got cool creators making cool stuff all the time. So let's look at the Sigil VTT that we played. Here it is right here. The adventure is pretty good little 1 hour adventure. I mean, not 1 hour, 4 hour adventure. The challenge, I think, was a little high, kind of in the middle, that the encounter where that Ankeg came out. Now, I beefed it up a little bit. The Ankeg wasn't supposed to be there because you guys had defeated it previously, but I brought it back in. That encounter was close. There's multiple characters unconscious and bleeding out in that one. But overall, what do you think of the balance of that adventure, David?
It seemed perfectly reasonable for characters of that level, which is a little surprising because it went a little hard. It could have definitely had some casualties, and that is something that Wizards tends to shy away from, especially, well, I don't know. They have mixed results in shying away from that at lower levels.
Low levels, they don't necessarily, do they?
Yeah.
They put some stuff in some of their low level adventures like, well, and the first room, right? The first room you guys come to in this adventure, there is a very dangerous thing there that can do an area of effect that if the party is lined up, could get the whole party. And I watched someone else did a video of their play, and it was a TPK in the first room.
Ouch.
And it certainly could be. It was definitely that dangerous. So you're right. They don't have a great track record for first level. Let's see. David says, I think there's room for AI for solo gaming. Okay, don't go there. Ray, maybe AI in just the dungeons. It'd be difficult to link plot hooks with all the maps randomized. Yeah. Mark Casaglio. That's what Hasbro did with Avalon Hill, but we still have board games without them. Oh, did Avalon Hill die? That's too bad. Yep, we'll still have adventure gaming without them. I mean, we got Daggerheart coming, Cosmere coming, Draw Steel coming, ShadowDark's doing strong, Castles and Crusades is strong. We got all our first edition, second edition, third edition, fourth edition books, fifth edition books. That first Ankeg I thought was going to eat the whole party. Yeah. That is a really tough, I mean, David, you talk about first encounters for a party to kind of get players into the swing of things. And it's definitely not an Ankeg that does an area effect that kills everyone.
Absolutely
That's
not.
not the monster to fight.
Not recommended by me, but I think if you're the person who spent a whole lot of time creating the 3D model of an Ankeg and animating it so it comes out of the ground,
yeah,
well, that's pretty irresistible to put in the adventure. So
yeah,
there it is.
So some stuff we learned while we were playing. If I go through these notes here, there was no wall constraints to line of sight. Well, I mean, if you zoom down to the level of the character, it'd block line of sight, but to spell casting, to arrange spells, to movement. So there's nothing there. Camera controls, you could move the camera into camera mode so it was right on your character, but you couldn't see through their eyes. That'd be a quick and easy fix, I would think, to make it more immersive.
Yeah, a couple of things that really stood out for me is there was no grid, which I
Yeah.
liked. I liked that flexibility and not having to fit things to a square. On the
Hmm.
other hand, if there were closed spaces, things like this where it's a big open space, that's awesome and really cool. But we were in some closet-sized locations, the sort of things you get all the time in adventures like Death House.
Yeah.
You couldn't see anything, and since you weren't necessarily snapping to a grid, one person would go in the closet that would be suitable for 4 if people were fitting on a grid and taking up the whole space. It was kind of a mess. The walls you couldn't see through, so you couldn't see what was going on in that confined spot. Um, you'd really have to design adventures in spaces that work better for this, unless maybe if we got a little bit more practice on it, it would work a little better. But wow, it worked a lot better in these big spaces. And it
Yeah.
also really showed off how, the 3D things with multiple levels and so on. That was so cool because that kind of thing is very hard to do on a tabletop. People get confused about who's where, and you
Yeah.
can't really do it on just a 2D battle map. But with this, wow, everything's clear and it looks awesome, and people can go from level to level without getting a confused space.
I'm just turn the volume off here and kind of have it play while we're talking. So I didn't like all the little dots where it was following each player's mouse location.
But
That was
that was
annoying.
that was strange and annoying.
I
But they
think
were
Foundry does that, and I don't like that in Foundry either.
I
Andrew
think
did
they were
say, Andrew said, I really enjoyed watching the adventure in Sigil from a consuming actual play content perspective. Yeah. Yeah, maybe a little bit more engaging than watching a 2D map. I could see that. And you're watching dice roll. You're watching the animation of the spells. That's pretty cool. You can see it's putting on conditions automatically, usually getting them right. Um, Ray says Andrew Strait. It definitely makes D&D more entertaining to watch. Andrew says for sure, very akin to Baldur's Gate 3. Yeah, I haven't played Baldur's Gate 3. Have you, David?
I have not. I'm woefully out of touch as a person who talks about D&D a lot.
Yeah. One little background thing, which is funny. So when I do a D&D game, I have a little like software tool that cuts out all the silence time. And unfortunately, in order to make this look fun, like it was fun to play, um, I had to not use that tool fully because when you roll the dice, no one's talking, right? So I didn't want to cut out the dice rolling because that's the main aspect of what the table shows. So I had to do a little extra work on the editing for this guy because the dice are fun. Just rolling dice is always cool. I like Foundry, how Foundry rolls dice. I think it brings a little bit more to the game that way.
Tom, I think I'm running out of time here. So
Okay. Yeah. It's about time to wrap up. Got some D&D game to go play later tonight. So thanks, David. And thanks everyone on the chat for watching. And hopefully we'll play some more Sigils sometime in the future and definitely be playing some ShadowDark in the future. So catch y'all later.
outstanding. Bye, folks.